In this video, I'm going to show you how to create your own customized map components in Xcelsius. Now, one of the questions that I get all the time is, how do I find my county map in Xcelsius, or where do I get the Xcelsius version of my state? Well, unfortunately, this particular program only has a handful of maps, and they're usually high-level maps that deal with very large regions. You don't go down to the county level or the state level. So this kind of leads you to create your own customized map components. But that's okay, because it's fairly easy to do, and I'll show you how to do that right now. The first thing that you'll need is an image of your map, and that image has to be in JPEG form in order for Xcelsius to be able to import it. But once you have a JPEG of your map, simply bring in an image component onto your canvas, and then double click on it, and then just click on Import under the General tab, and select the map name, Rhode Island in my case. Okay, so now I've got a JPEG of Rhode Island on my canvas. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create some hotspots on my map. So I can do that by bringing in some icon selectors. So I'm going to go into selectors and click on icon. Alright, so I'll put the icon selectors in each area of my map. Now these icons are going to help create hotspots on the map, meaning that when the user drags the mouse over them or clicks on them, something will happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand out the hotspot by expanding out the icons. And there you go. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, just close enough to where the user can either click or hover on a general area or a large majority of the area in the map and still get to the appropriate hotspot. Okay, so now the question is, what do we do with all these icons? That's got to do something. And the answer comes from an Excel model, which we haven't imported yet. So let's take a look at the Excel model. Now the Excel model that I've got here is very basic. It's essentially a very simple table that's got some data for each of the counties that I've got on the map. And the idea is going to be simple. Every single one of the icons that I've placed on the map is going to output a different value. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean when I click on the icon that's on top of Providence County, I'm going to make sure that that value is a different value than any other of the icons. In fact, that value is going to be 1. I've got a map code here for myself. So when I click on the icon on Kent County, I'm going to make sure that that value from that icon is going to output 2. Washington County will be 3, Bristol will be 4, and Newport will be 5. Now where's all that stuff going to go? Well, those values are going to go here in cell B2. So when I click on the icon on Providence County, it's going to output 1, but it's going to output it here in cell B2. So great, what does that do for me? Well, it allows me to use this particular value in a formula that will help me determine which one of these counties has been selected. Once that determination has been made, I can fill this particular row here with the data that's been selected, so I can use this data somewhere else in the dashboard in other components. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to show you one particular formula to use, but there are hundreds of things you can do with this particular technique. You can use VLOOKUPs, HLOOKUPs, you can use all kinds of formulas. In this particular example, I'm going to use an if formula. So I'm going to say something like this: equals if B2 equals 1, then give me this particular row. Else, if B2 equals 2, then give me this particular row. Else, if B2 equals 3, then give me this particular row. And you get the point. Let me go ahead and finish this up. And there you have it. Now I've taken the liberty of making B2 an absolute reference so I can easily copy it across without having to type this whole formula again. But let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to hit enter. There's nothing here, which is okay because there's nothing here. So if I type in a 3 here, I should see Washington County, and I do. Type in a 1, I should see Providence. Good. And if I type in a 5, Newport. So everything seems to be working okay with the formula. So now I should be able to copy it over and see the same kind of numbers that I see here in the raw data table, which I do. So let's go ahead and let me format this a little bit. Okay, now that it's formatted, I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. So now I should see nothing here. And again, let's go ahead and save this the way it is, and let's re-import this model. So I've gone ahead and imported our newly created Excel model, and it's time to configure each one of these icons in order to do something different. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the first one and show you that there's a property called source data. Now source data is going to have a button here with an ellipsis, 3 dots on it. I'm going to click on that to open the source data dialog box, and you'll see 2 items, unchecked and checked. The important thing is the checked item. The checked item has a status value of 1, meaning that when I click on this particular icon, it will output a number 1. Now, I'm going to leave it as number 1. Why? Because Providence I've got here as map code 1. So if I leave it as number 1, this particular icon will import a number 1 here in cell B2, and that will give me Providence. So that is okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to make sure that I have the insert in property inserting in the right place, B2, which is okay, and that's fine. So now this particular icon is going in the right place with the right value. So the next one is Kent. Now what are we going to do with Kent? Kent has a number 2 associated with it. So we're going to double click on here, source data property, checked. I'm going to change that to 2 and press OK. That means that now when it's checked, it'll insert a value of 2 in cell B2. Perfect. Now the next one is Washington. Washington is a 3. Go to source data property, checked is 3. Insert in, and I'm going to say cell B2, which is fine. Perfect. And then next one is Bristol. I'm going to make that a 4. Last one, of course, is Newport, and we'll make that a 5. Okay, so I've added a grid box here just so we can test this out. I'm going to go click on preview, and you'll see that as I click on each one, this changes. So that's good. So now what I want to do is do a couple things to these icons again. For each one, I'm going to change the behavior to update on mouse over instead of mouse click. And then the default selection is unchecked, which is fine. I'm going to go to appearance and change the transparency to 0. Now it's invisible. Same thing here. For each one of these, I'm going to change the transparency to 0, and I'm going to change the behavior to mouse over. Now let's test this out, and you can see that this map is now interacting with my mouse movements. Add some additional components on it, and you get really fancy.